What's up, internet geeks? Welcome back to SIAOAOA. I'm Gareth, and as you've guessed from the title today, we're talking about service integration and management, or SIAM for short. And on the subject of short, a few of my latest videos have been rather on the lengthy side. As service integration and management can be a very in-depth subject, I thought it better to split this topic up into a series of shorter videos. So today we'll be looking at what SIAM is. Well, sort of gives it away in the title really, and the different types of SIAM model organisations can adopt. Okay, SIAM part one, let's do this. So then, SIAM. Now if you've worked in IT for any period of time, no doubt this is a term you've probably come across at some point. But if you're like me, you've probably also heard differing explanations or interpretations of what SIAM actually is. Now, essentially, it's an approach for managing services end-to-end across IT environments where there is one or more suppliers, which, let's face it, is most nowadays. It's not a framework like ITIL or Prince2, but there's a move during recent years to define and standardise what SIAM is. And yeah, there's a close association to things like ITIL. In short, if you're an IT function with service providers providing services to you and your end users, SIAM is the approach to ensuring that those services are integrated and managed, surprise, surprise, that they're delivering the value you need them to. Now, most importantly, an optimal SIAM function retains ownership of some core responsibilities within the service management ecosystem. First up, the processes used to deliver and run IT services, and yet those tend to be those ITIL processes we all know and love. Then, of course, there's the tool sets for running those processes, and of course, in an integrated model, the various integrations that may need to exist between perhaps your tool set and that of a supplier. There's also the performance measurement and management, both of those service towers plugging into the model, internal and external, and the performance of service management as a whole. Then there's the day-to-day operational command, control, coordination of services being delivered and those in run, and finally the service architecture. Hopefully, as you may have picked up, and a common misconception in fact, SIAM is not just about service operations. And in operations, I mean those processes in the ITIL service operations bucket. A SIAM's function responsibility spans all the ITIL disciplines and for good reason. Take change management, for example. If you're managing multiple suppliers, you'll need to ensure those changes across the piece are planned, coordinated, communicated to, well, all relevant towers and not just one. There'll most likely be interdependencies between your various services, and therefore design coordination, again, is essential to consider. And in SIAM, if you think about it, we're talking about the management, integration, coordination of sometimes many different third-party organisations. And therefore processes like service portfolio management, financial management, supplier management, service level management are all key pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. So most definitely not just an IT operations thing. Where this perception or even confusion may have crept in the past is that it's not uncommon, as we'll hear about, for IT departments to outsource elements of their IT operations to third parties. But picking up your service desk, your incident request, problem and change processes and giving them to an MSP is certainly not equivalent to outsourcing your SIAM function. So let's take a look at the different types of model that SIAM typically adopts. So by and large, in my experience, there tends to be 4 different flavours of SIAM approach. Now in the coming weeks, I'll look to do a specific video focusing on each, but for now, those 4 are as follows. Firstly, an in-house. As the name suggests, an internal team that manages all suppliers and service towers and coordinates the SIAM function itself. Crucially, retaining ownership of the ITSM tooling and processes. Secondly, we've got that of a single supplier, whereby all IT services are provided by a single managed service provider and the SIAM layer of management. In this scenario, think full outsource. Most, if not all, your IT needs are provided back to you from a single supplier, and your service management focuses on the management of that single supplier. Next up, we've got that of a service guardian. This is where an MSP provides the SIAM layer of management and one or more delivery functions, as well as managing and coordinating activity of all other suppliers. And then finally, a distinct service integrator, whereby an MSP provides only that SIAM layer of management and manages all service delivery providers underneath. Now, in my opinion, it's super rare that any organisation, your organisation in fact, adopts exclusively one model over the others. I tend to think of these four models at sort of the four different corners of a diagram, and the operating model adopted will see your SIAM capability and approach somewhere in between the various models. Naturally, there'll be a gravitation towards one more than the others, but in the 15 years I've worked in IT service management, I don't think I've ever seen a full adoption of just one of the models. There's always a nuance. For example, I recently worked for a managed service provider whereby to many of our customers we provided technology and infrastructure support in addition to what I guess the market calls service management, managed services, things like a service desk, change management, incident management and so on. Now, for some customers we provided the vast majority of their IT support. All incident and request tickets were logged at our service desk and in the main assigned to one of our infrastructure or technology resolving teams. 95% of change activity for the customer was done by the MSP's teams, and in fact the customer utilised our standard processes and our ITSM tooling, which in this scenario was ServiceNow. Now, as part of their ecosystem, there were a couple of smaller boutique third-party providers that provided IT services to the customer, and they too navigated our service desk, our incident change request processes, and integrated with our toolsets. So on the face of it, that sounds pretty much like a service guardian type setup, and yeah, it was pretty close. However, the MSP I work for wasn't responsible or contracted, most importantly, for some of those key service integration and management responsibilities, namely performance management and measurement. Now, if one of those third-party providers were having a rough time of it, not being able to meet their SLAs, delivering poor performance, etc., wasn't the MSP I work for responsibility to address that with them. This was the responsibility of the customer. So in that sense, the model adopted was somewhere between service guardian and retained organisation. Hopefully that gives you a better understanding of what we mean when we say SIAM. Importantly, as I've highlighted, it's not a one-size-fits-all binary thing. It's an approach that has evolved and developed over time with different flavours. We're going to leave it there for today, but as I said, in the next set of videos on this topic, we'll be looking more closely at each type of SIAM model, the pros and cons for each, what things to look out for. See you back here really soon. Thanks for stopping by. Take it easy.